Well, I just want to share a little bit my experience. When you come into the world, I think God give you a body, a mind, and a spirit, and a free will. And I think sometimes you think you have a free will until terminal illness it'll come into your life, and all of a sudden you realize then you don't really have a free will. It doesn't matter where you go around the world. It's when it comes down to cancer, you have pretty much three choices: surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. Let's start with radiation. I mean, is not radiation the first cause of cancer? If you don't believe me, ask the Japanese. They'll tell you. Chemotherapy. It's first of all, it's a 70 years old technology. I don't know if you know anybody of you know. It's a 70 years old technology. We live in the 21st century. I think when you go buy a car, you buy a new car. When you buy a phone, you want a new phone. So why you want a 70 years old technology? I mean, mankind went to the moon. We have a space station. We went to Mars. And we still use a 70 years old technology. I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I'm just a person with common sense. Did you ever ask your question why we use a 7 years old technology? And on top of that, the majority of people die of chemotherapy and of cancer. Chemotherapy will kill you faster, way faster than cancer. And, my sister came down with ovarian cancer. And so when she got diagnosed with ovarian cancer, those three choices, they were presented to her: chemo, radiation, and of course surgery. I told my sister, please don't ever accept radiation. So she went, of course, chemo and surgery. Don't ever listen to people telling you then Europe is ahead of America, of the United States, because it's not true. In medical, in a hospital and with doctors and medical practice is absolutely a lie. So she was in one of the top hospital in Europe, and they pretty much overdosed her on chemotherapy. Not only that, but because they saw that the chemo wasn't working on her, they decided to do some of the most powerful chemo. My sister had ovarian cancer, and they started treating her with chemo for sarcoma. And you have here, Dr. Burzynski can tell you, sarcoma is one of the worst cancer. And they almost killed my sister, to the point where she was so dehydrated, to the point that she didn't go to the bathroom for 2 weeks. She didn't have even a drop of pee. She was paralyzed. Her body was shutting down. And 2 doctors, they visit her. And they say, Christina, you look kind of pale. And one of the doctors turned to her boyfriend and said, maybe you should go out and get her some Centrum. Give me effing break. A Centrum? When you die, when you're like 2 or 3 days away of dying, not even of cancer, of dehydration, because the chemo is so powerful, then they are killing you. I felt there was something wrong. And I took the first flight back to Italy, and I went. And when I saw my sister, I didn't even recognize her. She looked like a 7 years old woman, and she's only 44. She was totally dehydrated, a few days from dying. No doctor in the hospital saw that. I saw it, and I called an outside doctor. The outside doctor came in, examined her, and they said, your sister's about 2 or 3 days away from dying. Her kidney is shutting down, her liver. I mean, every single organ. She couldn't even metabolize. I mean, everybody knows 60% of your body is water. She couldn't even metabolize a sip of water. Her body was refusing to metabolize even a sip of water. So I took her out from the hospital. I brought her home, and the doctor started giving her at home some IV. 4 days later, she was walking. And I decided, I said, Christina, we have to go. You know, here you're gonna die. And they don't want to even tell you. You see, in America, you have to tell. The doctor has to tell the patient. You know, if something like that happened, you know, you're dying. I mean, they have to tell you. In Europe, they tell the family. My family went into shock. My brother didn't want to say a word. My father is 9 years old. My mother has Alzheimer's. Thank God. Sometimes you look at life and you go like, you know why my mother, you know, a very sharp woman, got Alzheimer's. And after, you know, there is always the other side of the coin. I told her, Christina, I wanted to take you to the best doctor in the world. Why? I did my research. You know what my father taught me when I was a little kid? He always told me, Fabio, you know, in life what counts is facts, it's actions, not words. Anybody can talk. Anybody can promise you the moon. Doesn't mean they're going to deliver. So it always stick in my mind. And so I did my own research. And knowing a lot of people and a lot of doctors, and I have quite a few friends here, they are doctors. And they told me, Fabio, let's bring it to MD Anderson is the best place in the world. Let's bring it to Sloan Kettering is the second best place in the world. Let's bring it to J. Hopkins, third best place in the world for cancer. And these are doctors. And I say, no. I'm going to bring to the only one that I believe can save my sister, Dr. Burzynski. And they said, well, Fabio, it's very controversial. I said, you know, I appreciate you being my friend. I appreciate you supporting me. But let me tell you something. If I bring it to MD Anderson, let's say the best place in the world for cancer, and if my sister die, I'm always going to have that question mark in my mind. What about if I would take her to Dr. Burzynski? I took her to Dr. Burzynski because I will never have, if something happened to my sister, I will never have that question mark in my head. I'm always going to think, you know what? I tried the best. I guess wasn't meant to be. But I can live with myself because I tried the best. You know, even when Galilei discovered then planet Earth was around, the skeptic, they believe, you know, the planet was flat. And you know the end of that story. I personally met Dr. Burzynski. Let me tell you something about Dr. Burzynski. And you know, all my friends that can tell you, I'm a straight shooter. I speak out of my mind, I speak out of my heart. And sometimes, you know, it's like when you tell the truth, some people get offended. But, you know, the truth is the truth. And today in our society, people they only want to hear half of the truth and not the entire truth. But, you know, the truth is the truth. Dr. Burzynski, it's a genius. And, you know, I met a lot of doctors in my life, including the one in Europe. They're full of themselves. They have a big ego. If there is a person who has no ego whatsoever, it's Dr. Burzynski. This is a guy, I'm telling you, he's probably one of the biggest geniuses out there. Why? Because since the 70s, he's been, you know, curing people with terminal cancer. And let me tell you, he doesn't get like all the other hospitals, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. He gets a lot of people that mostly they are corpse. Okay? They go to MD Anderson, they go to Sloan Kettering, they go to all the best places in the world. And only when those places they tell, there's nothing we can do, go home and die, all of a sudden, they go to see Dr. Burzynski. And when I met Dr. Burzynski, I said, Dr. Burzynski, number one, I'm really sorry for what, pharmaceutical company and FDA cost to you. And I know you're not God, but I know, thank God, there is a person like you who saved thousands of people. All the skeptics, blah, 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 blah. Everybody can talk behind a computer, but what counts in life is action. Action speaks louder than words, and Dr. Burzynski cured thousands of people from all over the world and prove with medical records. To me, that's what's counting in life. And thank God, there is a person like Burzynski. And I'm amazed how, more people don't know about Dr. Burzynski. It should be the first name to be known in the world when it comes down to cancer. The first name, not the last name. And pharmaceutical company, the reality, they care more about giving you a boner than to find the cure for cancer. That, unfortunately, is the sad reality. It's true. Unfortunately, it's like the truth is the truth, But I'm telling you, it's like if you have only the opportunity to see and to meet Dr. Burzynski, this is a guy who speaks 14 different languages. And when you talk to the guy, your brain have to go 10,000 miles an hour. Because, it's brilliant. And, I was amazed because when I told him, I'm sorry, Dr. Burzynski, what all these people put you through. And he goes like, no, Fabio, it's okay. You know why? More people there are on me, and more I come out with invention. And you can only admire. And he's the most humble guy. And when these people, they're talking about a cult, I took my sister there. I took her on a wheelchair. 3 weeks later, she was coming with me to eat in restaurant. So I saw with my own eyes. And what MD Anderson is trying to do and getting all the found to create gene therapy, Dr. Burzynski is already doing it. You don't have to wait. So if you know anybody out there with cancer, please tell them about Dr. Burzynski. And remember, even the pharmaceutical company, they are oil company, pharmaceutical company, probably they are the most powerful company on the planet. They own the world. That's the fact. But remember, they are only 1%. We are the 99% of the world. And if we get together, okay, and we help each other, and just, sometimes people, they go like, what can I do by myself? No. You don't understand. God give you so much. You can go out there and tell other people so they can tell other people. I was looking the statistic of the UN today on a computer. Latest statistic of the UN, they're unbelievable. There are 7 billion people on a planet. And the newest statistics, they said 2.150 million and 248,000 have cancer or some kind of cancer. That is the reality. So think about what kind of business. When you're talking about 105,000 or plus more in chemotherapy, do your math. That's why it's the most profitable industry in the world. And that's why they don't care to find the cure. And that's the reality. But you know what? Every single one of you can change that. So, thank you.
You can give it to Tori. Go, Tori. This is Tori Moreno from the film, if you remember, the 6-week-old girl. This is her father, Roman. Mary Jo Siegel, she's a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma survivor from back in the 90s. Both of her husband, Steve, and she both were in the beginning of the film, and of course at the end, if you remember. Rick Schiff, the famous San Francisco Police Department officer, that opened up the original film, and you saw a clip of him at the end. He's going to tell you his story a little bit today as well. Haven't seen you in a while. This is retired Lieutenant Colonel James Treadwell, who had a glioblastoma, just like Laura Hymas had, and here he is. Marine Corps, I'm sorry, yeah. And I just met you today. This is a patient who had what's called triple-negative breast cancer. Here she is sitting here today under Burzynski's personalized therapy program as well. So thank you so much for coming.
This film was great. I don't have a question, but I think that one of the people on the can respond. I happen to be the head skeptic in Orange County, and I think that this film negatively reflects what skeptics are all about. I agree with everything in this film because it's been tested. It's been tested in different countries. So I want you to respond on, I know that there is a skeptic that was introduced in your film, which I am appalled by, being a skeptic myself. I operate on promoting science. I have skeptics groups. I have over 1,000 people in my group in Orange County. And I think that I'm going to recommend this movie to all of them.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I want to say one thing. I think there's a difference between a healthy skepticism, and there's a difference between that and people that label themselves skeptics. I'm not accusing you of doing so, sir, and then sort of creating an agenda, and just they're more interested in winning their agenda than they are actually practicing the act of being skeptical and reviewing things and seeing. Skepticism is very healthy. Fabio practiced extreme skepticism to get where he is today. He didn't just blindly believe something, So, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, sir.
I just want you to know, first of all, just from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that you came, number one, and number two, that you had the courage to identify yourself, and number three, I appreciate your stance a lot. And I think that's what we have to do on our side, is to convince that group. It seems to be a very nebulous group, but they're not all like you. Their minds are closed. We've encountered many of them, very close up and from very far away, and they've been very harmful. And they're harming patients, and what they're doing is, to call it dastardly and unconscionable, is being kind. So I would like to invite you, meet me afterwards in the back. I have some additional things that you can see close up that Burzynski has published. He's published between 2 and 3 articles a year, some peer-reviewed in scientific journals, on the minimum 2 to 3. I have going back to 1997. I'd like you to see it for yourself, and then please report back to your group, and please call the dogs off. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there are actually 2 police officers sitting up here, but I'm going to grab the mic first. And I just want you to know, first off, I want to reaffirm what Steve just said, because he's absolutely right. Every one of those skeptics, and I'm a police officer, I'm the ultimate skeptic. Every one of those I've sent emails to, I've approached. As soon as my name comes up, or as soon as they see me on the blog or wherever it is, they disappear. And yet, aren't I pretty much the epitome of who they're referring to as a cult member? Because my daughter died 16 years ago, and I've been supporting Dr. Burzynski that entire time. I've testified in front of Congress, I've testified in front of court, so I'm not sure what to do. I mean, we've reached out, we've done what we could to communicate, to provide information, to open up a correspondence, and the other end just disappears on us.
I think the reason for that is because, excuse me for talking out of turn, is that there are
Please.
many scams in the world against good science with cancer. This one is not one of them.
Wow.
Thank you.
You're exactly right, and now that you realize that, really, I hate to put this on your shoulders because I know that's a big group out there and it's a very powerful group, but it's incumbent upon you to tell the story. And what you're going to learn now, what you learned from the film, we are reaching out to you now. The science is there, the science is real. The stories are real. These are people who had nowhere to go. These are people that were stage 4 cancers. They were cast off by traditional, conventional chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. And these people are alive today as a result. Tori Moreno was the youngest person ever treated. She's one of the few children ever treated with DIPG at that age. Her parents were told, this child has about 1 to 2 months. Don't even bother to treat her. Tori is not alone. There are many like her. They were children then. They're having children of their own now. These are Dr. Burzynski's survivors. These are Dr. Burzynski's statistics, anecdotes, whatever you want to call them. But the science is real. The science is here.
Just want to say one more thing.
Please.
You have to watch Dr. Burzynski part 1 because what's really caught my attention is to me, is the most powerful statement than I ever saw in my entire life, and it was done by surgeon Rick Schiff. It was the most amazing thing than I ever saw. You have to watch that movie because the beginning of the movie, it's when Surgeon Rick Schiff is talking. It's one of the most powerful things I ever saw in my entire life.
I'll start over here. Yes, sir.
You're the person on the panel that's not doing the neo-antiplastin. You're doing the genetic, the personal genetic treatment.
Yes.
And you're also using, if you're kind of, I guess what we would say is the protocol of what we would love to have, which is having traditional medicine, having Dr. Burzynski, and what has been your experience as you're going through cancer?
Okay. Well, first of all, I've been an RN for 35 years. I've worked with many physicians, and I have to say, not all physicians are equal. Not all physicians think out of the box. Dr. Burzynski is, as Fabio said, a most wonderful, humble, a brilliant man. I am on a gene targeting therapy. I am not dead, and I am not paralyzed because of Dr. Burzynski. While on his treatment, I went gorilla trekking in Rwanda. I will fight for this man. I've had many dialogues with skeptics, unlike you, sir, who are very unfriendly and very biased against Dr. Burzynski, and I really appreciate what you had to say. Really did.
Do you mind quickly explaining what triple negative breast cancer is?
I'll let Dr. Burzynski
right.
Jr.
Triple negative breast cancer is the most challenging breast cancer out there. It's called triple negatives because of the fact that it does not have the receptors that have been identified before, such as estrogen, progesterone, or something called HER2. There's really not a good standard of care therapy. So physicians are really struggling to figure out a good treatment plan for this cancer. So the life expectancy, unfortunately, the prognosis is not very good. Hence, you really need an out-of-the-box treatment plan for somebody like Ms. Heron.
Yes, sir. You in the aqua shirt.
Yeah, I had a question for Fabio.
Sure.
Your sister has ovarian cancer. I'm
Right.
assuming she's still alive.
Yes.
How long has she had this? How many years has it been for her?
Well, 3.5 years. She was under the cure of the best hospital in Italy, and so they did. She did 3 surgery. The first time they removed ovary.
This is before Dr. Burzynski.
Yeah. This is before Dr. Burzynski. You know what happened is that before they pretty much they went in, they saw she had a cyst in the ovary, and they didn't even do a biopsy. They just went in and did surgery, and the spokesperson cancer, all this, it was everywhere. So the first surgery they took pretty much ovary, uterus, and the appendix out, and a few months later, her CA125 cancer cell, they were through the roof, so they went in again, and they took out about 3 feet of her intestine, and did chemo, a bunch of this first round of chemo. After that, I was back in Italy, and I told my sister, you know, it's like, Christina, you know, you can't eat in the way you always eat all your life. And so I put on a very, very strict diet. And she went back 5.5 months later, and the cancer cell, the CA-125, that went from 700 down to 7. And, you know, the doctors goes, oh, you see, Christina, the chemo is working. And my sister goes, actually, my brother put me on a very, very strict diet. And, you know, this is the first time I saw a result. And the doctor goes, oh, don't listen to your brother in America. You know, he's not a doctor. You know, diet and cancer, they have nothing to do one with each other. So my sister told me. And he said to her, you know what? Do me a favor, go back and eat whatever you want. Because if it was just a diet, it wouldn't be, you know, cancer is not that simple. So it's not just the diet. Diet doesn't work. Cancer and diet has nothing to do with each other. So my sister, you know, it's, you know, she's the kind of person who likes to eat. She went back to the regular eating habits, mean a lot of sweets and, you know, tons of pasta and so on. And 6 months later, she went back but anyhow, she was, again, always on the same chemo. She went back after 6 months, and her cancer cell, they were over 1,400. And at that point, the doctor decided, you know what, this treatment, this chemotherapy doesn't work anymore, so we're gonna do another chemo, another type of chemo. And that's what this professor, who's really full of himself, he thinks that he's got gifted to the world. He decided to put her on this kind of chemo. Then after we find out when we came to America, then actually this chemo is for sarcoma. It's not even for ovarian cancer. And that's what the chemo almost killed my sister. And in the last 14 months, just to give you an idea, they give her, she went through 28 rounds of chemo. 28. You ask any American doctor, they say it's in 14 months, and she was scheduled for 2 more. And she was dying of dehydration, and she was scheduled. If I didn't go to the hospital and get her out of the hospital, she was scheduled the next day for another round of chemo. And she was in bed, paralyzed, 2 weeks without even having a drop of pee. She was really 2 or 3 days away from dying. And you give another chemo for sarcoma, it would have killed her right there. So thank God, you know, yes, and so I brought it to Dr. Burzynski, and I tell you something, 3 weeks. No, 3 weeks. No, 3 years back in Europe. Right.
Diagnosed 3 years.
Yeah, diagnosed 3 years ago. I'm telling you, when they tell you, you know, Dr. Burzynski didn't promise me anything. He said, there is hope. You know, I think as a human being, hope is the last thing you have to die. It's the last thing. If you have no hope, you're already dead. So when I took my sister there, you know, I said, Christina, I'm bringing you to the best. It doesn't matter, because she did her investigation. She went on a computer and saw all the skeptics, all the, you know, people doing all their critiques. And she even told me, but you know, it's a brain cancer specialist. And I don't know. I said, this doctor killed so many different types of cancer. So many. It's not just brain tumor. So I brought it there, and I brought it there on a wheelchair. 3 weeks later, she was coming with me to eat in restaurants. So to me, already there, it's a miracle.
Yeah, I wish I had known about.
Yeah, I mean,
I wish I knew about your father.
that's why I wanted to make my own life mission. I want to know everybody on earth to know Dr. Burzynski, because there is, I mean, this guy proved over and over, they need cure many different kind of cancer, you know? And everybody should know about Dr. Burzynski around the world. Not just in America, everywhere in the world, because there is hope. There is hope, okay? There is one man, and I'm telling you, is investing every single penny that he makes in research. And, you know, when American Cancer Society, I used to be the spokesperson in the 90s for the American Cancer Society. Well, I was naive because I work for the American Cancer Society. I dedicate all of my time, I raise a lot of money. And after I found out 90% of the money goes to the charity and 10% to the cause. Shouldn't be the way around. You know, I mean, just common sense. You know, it should be the way around. 90% should go to the cause and 10% to the charity. I don't want to raise money so I can buy new furniture or new computers for a charity. You know, I want people to benefit. And there is so many people all over the world. They will never had a chance or a hope to even come in this country or to come to see Dr. Burzynski.
Is the clinic stalling up to the FDA, or what's going on?
Essentially, to keep it short, the Antineoplastons portion, the FDA is finally, I guess, perhaps it's one of their last-ditch efforts to try to, in my opinion, where I'm sitting, to try to squash this once and for all. That's my opinion. I think the clinic, they're closer to it. They're dealing with it directly. But to answer your question, no new patient can get Antineoplastons at this moment as of that visit that happened in January. So, but the personalized, you know, the gene testing and the personalized therapies that they design, they can get that because there's not a whole lot they can do about that because he's using everybody else's drugs that are on the market already anyway. So, you know, but his invention is locked up at the moment right now. So, yeah. I mean, this person over here had his hand up. Was that you? Yes.
Yes, that was part of my question to Dr. Gregg. Is it true that, is it no new patient or any patient at all now is receiving antineoplastin?
No new patients are now allowed to receive antineoplastons. However, the patients currently on treatment are receiving them.
Okay. And to follow that up, I was curious whether the Institute now, how does the antineoplastin therapy, in your mind, compare with the personalized gene therapy, which is new to me? I didn't realize you were doing that. Are you phasing out antineoplastins, assuming it wasn't being banned in the first place? Is the future toward this other thing, or some combination of antineoplastins and personalized gene therapy? What's ahead?
Well, by no means are we abandoning antineoplastons. Hopefully it'll be a future where both will be a reality, where we can add the antineoplastons to future treatment plans. So right now we have an explosion of all these new medications which will hopefully allow better results for cancer patients, and by using a personalized approach we can hopefully obtain that. So we're doing a dual synchronized approach, and hopefully we'll get antineoplastons back on track.
Are you doing anything legally or?
No, we have personnel working to get this partial clinical hold lifted. So by no means are we resting. We have a lot of staff that is employed. Hopefully we'll have some good news in the next few months or sooner.
Something I'd like to add to that so it's very clear. Mary Jo and I were just at the clinic this week. It was for her annual follow-up, annual checkup. And the clinic is still very much active in taking new patients using the targeted therapy treatments. And it's very effective because in addition to the various approved targeted therapies that they were talking about in the film, they use another product called PB, phenylbutyrate, which Dr. Burzynski was one of the first doctors going back 30, 35 years ago to use it in the treatment of cancer. It's a capsule or tablet, and when it's taken orally, it breaks down into antineoplastons when it goes through the liver. So it's essentially another arrow in the quiver of the different treatments that they use, and it's what makes the targeted, personalized therapy so effective, is that they can use antineoplastons in another form. And yes, they are treating patients with that. And we hope, as Dr. Gregg said, that very shortly the FDA will lift the ban on antineoplastons, because that, in this case, it's not just for brain tumors as they showed in the movie, but it's for many, many types of cancer. Mary Jo was cured of an insidious type of low-grade non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for which there was no cure, and she's here now 21 years later, 21 years after diagnosis, when she shouldn't be up and walking.
I want to just go in national media and just tell the truth. You know, just go on national media, you know, Oprah, Ellen DeGeneres, maybe even 60 Minutes, and just tell the truth. So people out there can, you know, they can make their own mind. And, you know, if any skeptic, they want to come on the show and debate me on, and I'm going to bring, you know, Dr. Burzynski, let's have open debate on national TV. And let people decide for themselves. You know, I'm telling you, sometimes it's hard, but you know, the FDA, think about it, they've been after this man for 30 years. If they find only this much on this man, his clinic would be already closed, and he would be already in jail. He won against the FDA. They couldn't find anything. The last time they were there, he presented 2.5 million pages of medical trial. Who does that? I mean, how much more do you want from this guy? You know, I understand. Be all the skeptic you want. But when you have proof over and over and over and over, then this guy can cure many, many type of cancer. You know, if you are still a skeptical, in my book, you're an ignorant. Because I'm telling you, what's count is action, and this guy with facts, over and over and over, prove to be able to cure cancer. So I don't understand how much more do you want? If the FDA couldn't find this much on this guy, you think just a regular skeptic is going to find something? And plus, all these skeptics out there, who they are? Probably people, I tell you, it doesn't take a genius to figure out. Or they're people being paid by the pharmaceutical industry, or they have no people. They are people with no life. So my advice to them: get a life. You know, get a life. Live this. This man, Dr. Burzynski, is busy saving lives. Don't waste any more of his time.
Yeah, I'm going to say one thing.
Or otherwise, come on national TV, you know, debate him. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I was told we only have like 10 or so minutes, so I don't want to cut you off, of course. But I want to say one thing about, on the tail end of what you said, Tori Moreno, I know this is all big, and there's all these, like, what types of cancer can he treat, and blah, blah, blah. I know this is a lot of information to absorb. But I am spending this much time with it, you know, and working hard, like maybe Fabio, you know, stepping up and other people stepping up as well. But the fight begins with Tori because brainstem glioma has never been cured in medical history. Burzynski's cured over 33 of the course of a decade. It's not a lot, but there's only 500 kids even diagnosed in this country with it. And because of this medication that has finished phase 2 trials and has been offered to phase 3, the fact that it's not been given accelerated approval, the first medicine in history of the FDA that has not been thrown on the market as a first available therapy, it's devastating. And I think, my opinion is that's all you need to focus on, because once that's on the market and is available to the public, then any oncologist can have access to it. But the very idea that he's cured of brainstem glioma again and again and again and again, that is more than enough proof I think anyone ever would need, because that is the most difficult type of cancer to ever touch.
I don't have the expertise the gentlemen here do, but as a dad, watching your daughter die in front of you, I go back to '98 when my daughter was just 6, 8 weeks old. Here she's dying in front of me, and I did the research like these gentlemen did here, fighting for their families. And I went to Fred Epstein in New York, one of the most pronounced, or he's a very distinguished pediatric neurosurgeon. At the time, he was ranked #1 in the country, Reader's Digest. So we had him examine Tori's brain cancer, see if he could do surgery in that. But it's actually entwined in the brainstem. And he said, I'll kill your daughter on the operating table, and I'm a pretty good doctor. Now, Fred Epstein was ranked #1 in the world in pediatric neurosurgery back in '98. That's a very highly skilled doctor that had nothing they could do with my daughter. She was 8 weeks old. She hadn't even had a diaper rash at that time. I went to City of Hope. I went to all these doctors all over the place. Children's Miller in Long Beach. They said, you have no chance. When Tori's mom and I called the American Cancer Institute, National, and NCI, they said that Tori's chances were so remote, they were in the millions. They said, Mr. Marino, we can't even give you a number because they're in the millions, and you have no hope. We don't even keep track of that on a stage 4 brainstem glioma. So we stumble upon Dr. Burzynski on the internet, and I was skeptical at first, and I said, who is this person? These doctors are telling me you're going to not only lose your daughter here in a few weeks, you're going to lose your house if you bank on Dr. Burzynski. So as a police officer, I'm a Los Angeles County Deputy Sheriff, Lieutenant Rick Schiff here from San Francisco PD. I tracked him down in a book. I said, okay, I'm a cop. We're going to do my homework. And I flagged down Rick Schiff, San Francisco PD, did the homework. He gave me some data. When I was asking my doctor about Dr. Burzynski, they said he wasn't sponsored by anybody and that they couldn't endorse that like you saw in the film. And my thing as a dad was, I didn't care if he was sponsored by Nike or Adidas. If this doctor could save my daughter's life, we were going. So we put our house on the line, and thank God I did, because this is a girl here that's never been on chemo, never been on radiation, never been on anything. She's been on Dr. Burzynski, and she's alive. Dr. Burzynski.
I'd like to segue off that because I'd like you to have a human face to picture in your mind when you go home tonight. That was 14 years ago that I talked to Roman. Every week since then, I've talked to parents with children the same way because I think that's my responsibility. I owe that to society. Right now, Greg and I have a mother with a 9-year-old boy with a medulloblastoma. There is no other treatment. There is no other opportunity for this child for life. He's been sitting for 3 months waiting to go to Burzynski's clinic while his tumor grows. How would you like to be that mother? And what do I say to her? Yeah, these other patients got in by hook, by crook, by luck, and you have to wait because, I didn't stand up to the FDA 16 years ago? I mean, I don't have answers for her. I don't know what to tell her. And I don't know what to tell you. But I do know that we all have a responsibility to do something about this. Forget Burzynski personally. We have a responsibility to society to provide the kinds of treatments, not just Burzynski, but any treatment that cures people. And yet, you've heard the causes and effects here. And again, I don't have the answer, but at some point we need to turn and fight. We need to say no more.
Anything we can do to help that cause?
I think, in my personal opinion, I think the only way this situation is going to change is if we have millions of people pissed off about this, perhaps even protesting in D.C. People like Fabio, and you get Brad Pitt, whoever. You get a constant dialogue. You get the different radio show personalities talking about it on their shows and arguing about it, where it becomes a dialogue. It has to become a massive monster where everybody knows who Burzynski is, and everybody knows what antineoplastons are, and everybody knows what the problem is, and everybody says, we've had enough of this. Because the FDA is it's like dealing with the mafia. I mean, it's a cartel that has been purchased by the industry. They were once a regulatory agency, but that's not the case anymore. So how do you fight something like that? They didn't have to call up to come in. They just walk right in the front door. We're the FDA. I think it has to be a massive pushback. Like, unlike anything that, like what Martin Luther King or Gandhi has done in our history, it has to be that big. That's just me. But, I could be wrong. And even then, it's going to be hard. They're going to still keep moving the goalpost on us. But.
Okay, and just real quickly, this gentleman in the back had said, gee, I hope you guys keep on fighting. I hope we can keep on fighting. We've been fighting this for decades now, and it's like asking the rape victim, if you will, and I'm sorry for the poor analogy, but it's asking for the rape victim to go out and fight to have new laws enacted to prevent rape. These are the people that the injustice has been done. This is a much broader public issue. It's a public health issue, and it affects not only the people up here, it affects all of you, because I guarantee you, if I ask for a show of hands, how many of you either have cancer or know somebody that has cancer in your family, or one step or two steps removed, I will get probably a 90% show of hands. So the issue goes beyond us, like Eric said, and it's going to take a fight, not from this group. We're just the basis of it. We can give you all of the information, all of the facts, but it's going to take a public outcry like of the size we haven't seen before. But it's very similar and very much akin to the civil rights movement of the 60s. It's big or bigger than the AIDS, HIV movement of the 90s. And look how fast, with a very small contingent of people, Congress and American lawmakers across the country responded and had a whole batch of new drugs, none of which, by the way, parenthetically, are that effective. In combination, they're okay. But those were approved almost with no FDA-approved clinical trials. So it can be done. It's not hopeless. But you can't say, to the patients that are up here and the families of the patients, you guys do it. No, I'm going to turn it back on you. You have to do it. And the first thing you can do is call your representatives. It sounds like a cliche, but if they hear it enough from you, and we can get on our end people like Fabio that will help, and people that can pass the word, the public listens to people like this. If we're loud enough, they'll listen to us. But it's on the legal side, on the lawmaking side, on the political side, they have to hear from the American public.
And if I can jump in there, as an example, with this same 9-year-old child, we contacted Nancy Pelosi's office, the minority leader, and her aide literally told the mother of this child that Burzynski was a fraud and a charlatan, and that he knew better and that she shouldn't go. So she got a hold of me. I got some of the documentation from Burzynski supporters. We put it back in, and we turned him 180 degrees. Now she's asking, what can she do to help? Unfortunately, directly in this situation, there isn't anything she can do right now. But they do have power. They do have ability. They can legislate. You have to approach them. You have to give them the time and the effort.
We have been under such pressure from the skeptics, and patients are literally losing time, not going to see Burzynski, wasting time. Children are not getting to see him. You can join us on Twitter at Burzynski Saves, where a number of the patients are speaking back to the skeptics, because there's a lot of negativity up there, and you can join us on Twitter and help us fight some of that negativity and help educate those skeptics, not present company excluded, but those skeptics who either don't understand, are ignorant, or refuse to understand and refuse to let us be heard. Thank you.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a celebrity. Okay? Remember, God gave you as much power and give to a celebrity. You're the same. You have that power to change.